time is a tricky thing. It seems to speed up or slow down based on whether we're entertained with who we're with or what we're doing or whether we're bored, and yet the clock keeps perfect accuracy. One of the greatest debates about time took place exactly 100 years ago in Paris. One Albert Einstein, who you may have heard of before, was giving a lecture on the nature of time and relativity, and at kind of a salon afterwards, a philosopher rose to sort of offer a rebuttal to his claims, a man named Henry Bergson. And Bergson isn't really remembered today, but he was a pretty big deal in the French philosophical world back in 1922. And this moment between the two of them gets sort of billed as the moment that the science of time sort of replaced any philosophical conception of time. Albert Einstein pretty much shredded Henry Bergson, and in so doing, the star of Albert Einstein and science rose, and Henry Bergson and sort of his philosophical worldview, that star began to set. And it's worth thinking a little bit about their two conceptions of time, which I promise you has relevancy. So Einstein has this theory of relativity. And time is like space. It's relative. It bends and shifts based on gravity and proximity to bodies. It kind of sits in a kind of dimension all its own. And therefore, the idea of a past, a present, and a future just isn't on tap for Einstein. They're all one. Just depends on where you're standing. Einstein wrote once that the idea of a past, a present, and a future are simply a persistent illusion. All of time is now. Henry Bergson, on the other hand, disagreed. He said time was linear. It flowed out. And that the present moment was very pregnant with all of the past. It held everything in it that had come before, but had this kind of generativity and creativity about it, because humans have free will. And what will we do? What is the future we will make? We don't know. The future is open. And so it will flow out from us. It's undetermined as yet. And so you have these two views, one in which time is, and one in which the future is open. It's not determined yet. And if you're interested in this, there's a new book coming out from Princeton University Press. But I'm going to just have my hot take moment here and say, why choose? Why do we have to decide which notion of time we want? Because I think both ways of conceiving time are infinitely relevant and present to us as we celebrate this sacrament. That the Eucharist, in some sense, is really about time. And it includes both of these ways of time. In the one sense, we have Paul, who says, "That which was handed on to me, I hand on to you, and you, and you, and you, through the generations." That Jesus, while at table with his friends, took bread and took a cup. And you're called to remember it. It's an invitation to remember the past meal that Jesus had. And yet, our Eucharistic prayer, we proclaim that Christ has come, and Christ is risen, and Christ will come again. That Christ, we remember him eating with his disciples, and yet we say that in this meal, in this bread, and in this wine, Christ is there now. And so in this moment of drinking bread and gathering at the table, we enter the eternality of God. Time bends around the gravity of the chalice. We are united with Christ. And we are united with everybody else through Christ who has ever come to that table. Past, present, yet to come, it doesn't matter. We are all one in the moment. One in the timelessness of Christ, who holds us, who holds all things. Past and present and future, they're irrelevant to God. There's a oneness there that holds us. We taste it in bread. And yet, while the Eucharist is very much at Christ's invitation and very much about who Jesus is and the implications of that for all of time and space, we come as we are in all of our humanness. Perhaps some of us have a mystical experience of oneness, but I don't know about you, my life pretty much unfolds in a linear way. I had breakfast. I think I had lunch. I will have dinner, and I'm standing here now. And I come with all of my humanness, and God meets me in the tangibility of bread and wine, these necessities for life, for sustenance. God meets us in our individuality and gives us grace in this moment. And as our Eucharistic prayer says, it's grace that sends us forth. It's grace that helps us step out. And so we come to this table that is generative and creative with God, filling us and helping us step into the unfolding future. How will we act for love? How will we be part of what God is doing in the world? How will we step out differently than we arrive? Why pick? Our faith is a paradox. It's a cross and a resurrection. And the Eucharist is too. God is bigger than any of us can ask or imagine, transcends time and space, and yet deigns to meet us in the tangibility of bread, here and now, this evening, gathered here. And so we don't need to choose or ask too much about how time is or what it is. But may the sacrament bless us in the present. And may the eternality of it hold us, enfold us, because it is more than us. It is our past and our present. It is our future. It is all of our destinies to be held in God forever and right now. And in some ways, those are one. May God meet you in this meal tonight. That is what is promised. The presence of God and the eternality of God. God who is Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, who always reigns, past and now and forever. Amen. This night appears to unfold like a regular Sunday Eucharist until about now, in the linearity of this time. And the word Maundy comes from the Latin for mandate, this idea that in our gospel reading, Jesus Christ lays out this mandate that we wash one another's feet. And most of the time, we choose to interpret that rather symbolically in how we serve and care for one another. But on this night, we choose to enact it literally, in all of its awkwardness, in all of its strangeness, for the sake of something bigger than ourselves, for the experience of gingerly caring for our neighbor's feet, mostly enclosed in shoes unseen, for the experience and the real humility of having one's own foot washed. And so it is tonight, you are invited to that experience in all of its discomfort. And perhaps that's the point, isn't it? And so the choir is going to sing, and there's a basin of lovely warmed water from our own sacristan. Thank you, Bob. And I'm going to pour water into it. I'm going to invite you to come forward, and when you come forward, maybe form a queue, and the first person in line sits down, and the next person washes their feet. And then that person who's washed sits down, and the next person washes their feet, see? It's a chain of love and service. So consider how God is calling you this night.